And just ask you to click. There we go. All right. Well, hello. Nice to see you.
Nice
Would
to
you like
see you too.
to start off just by saying your name and letting us know where you are, please?
So my name is Giselle Ruzany. I'm right now actually sitting in my home in Falls Church City, which is in Virginia, in the Northern Virginia area, about 20 minutes from DC,
Mhm.
Washington, DC, where I have a private practice there.
Okay. And our first question is, who are you? Who are you as a human being? And that can be any aspect of yourself that you would like to speak to. It can be your values, your passions, qualities about yourself as a person, whatever you'd like.
I think my whole life, I see myself as a dancer first and everything else second. So my first language is as a dancer. I most of my life spent in a dance studio and I evolved my dance as I grew. So many types of dance, right? I began, I was like a ballerina, right? Like no, first actually to be, extremely complete. I was in that creative dance class that kids go to, that it's all improv, you got a scarf and you dance around. And I remember being 3 years old and I going to that class and it changed me because I actually was a very depressed little 3 year old because my life was already a little chaotic. We were actually I was born in New York City and at 3 we moved back to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And what happened why I was born in New York City is because in Brazil there was a dictatorship and a lot of people left. So we left there, and I mean, I wasn't born yet. So my parents left there, and they were in New York. Anyway, so when we came back, it was kind of a big shock, culture shock for me. I didn't have words yet. I was like one of those, late speakers. And so I'm in Brazil. I don't know how to speak the language. I don't understand the smells, the sound. And and I went to dance class and I was 3 years old and I have the memory. I still have the memory of that dance class. And I feel like that's why when people ask who I am, I want to say I'm a dancer because I found myself that day, like in the middle of this feeling of like, why do I exist? And I remember I was just, at 3, like crying every day. I remember going on the mirror and seeing the tears, just really depressed at 3. You just think like, what's going on with this child?
That's
I
a
wouldn't
lot for
eat,
a 3-year-old.
right? I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't talk. It's just like I wasn't doing well. So yeah, so I found myself dancing and I've danced ever since. I still dance. I don't think I at this point I have tried to stop dancing, thinking, oh, this is a childhood thing, and it never stops. So I have to own that I am, first of all, I'm a dancer. Second, I'm many other things, but first I'm a dancer.
Hmm.
And I think the second thing I think would be being a mom. I think that would be my second thing because that was a something I never thought I was gonna be because, as dancers, we just don't have actually I think the time or the I don't know. I think I don't know, I was worried. I didn't think I would be a good mom, but I love being a mom and I think I do, a good enough job for at least my kids are just the sweetest things I have ever met. I have one in college and one in high school, and they're very into the arts, the visual arts and the music. They both are not dancers, but they come
But
to my
the dancer
shows.
mom had some impact, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's very, very much part of my identity. It's like I hold it very dear to me.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's big. And I think those two would be like if I have to choose two things to define who I am, I'll start there.
Yeah. What would you say are some of your like central values? How do you orient in the world? Like what do you move from?
Yeah, so that is very interesting because, when I think about why I say I'm a dancer is because that is a lot of the values I hold in terms of being present, finding my body, finding, finding my seat, finding my breath, finding my spine. And I think that my values evolve a lot around, can I be here? Can I allow myself to be here so I can be here with you? And then my values have a lot to do with, can I see you? Can I now get out of the way and see you? And can I be present with you? And can I not do the easy, like, I think I already decided who you are thing that the brain does. And kind of like, I think a lot of about my values is like, can I not do that? And can I feel the dance in between us? So I feel like I'm still like much in the dance world where a lot of my values is about connecting with something in the present moment so that I don't go into any ideas of what is not possible to what is possible. So what's possible here is very important to me, like what's possible in this hour together, or what's possible um, in terms of value. I think it's what's possible in terms of being an embodied being with an embodied other, and kind of like as if we are like planets that need sustainability and respect and care without sacrificing any of it. So I think a lot of my value is like, if I can if I can use this world we are co-creating with respect, then maybe I'm impacting something that I don't have control of, but that this is something I can at least try. Right? I don't know if that makes a
No, it
value.
does. Like I'm hearing sort of this dynamic presence being with, but it's moving, it's dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think like people ask sometimes like, do you like sometimes like a client will go like, do you believe in God? I'm like, well, it depends on the moment, on the day, on the I don't know, like it really actually I realized that, things are not necessarily, I don't know, still, like you're saying. It is very much moving and it's very much dancing, right? Like and sometimes if like some years are different than others, even some minutes are different than others. And it's like I think I am curious and interested in that movement that happens between space and time so that I don't um, get in my head. I don't like the head space very much. So that's another value.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in all of this moving, like through time and space and dancing, who would you say is another human being who you have experienced some kind of relationship or contact with who has impacted you or somehow affected or changed who you are?
Well, there is a lot of of people, and I don't know, like it is almost like, an and people have shifted, right? So of course, I don't know. I think my parents, of course, impacted me a lot. And it's different seeing that now and before. And I think before I wouldn't even say my parents. But I think at this stage in my life, I realize how much unconsciously I act in a way in response to those years that I was forming under them, even if they were, not necessarily very present, even because they both were medical doctors, like with weekends working and, leave at 5 in the morning, come back at 9 p.m. and crash kind of parents. But that even impacted me, that idea of like, go out there and move, do something, try to be of service, right? And so I think it, like I imagine, like from the Gestalt perspective, growing up in that field of, I want to be of service, I want to make a dent on someone's life and help them survive or help them, be cared for. I, you know, I, I remember this time my mom and I talk a lot about it. That I would be like, with fever at home, and my mom was just like, "I'm sorry, kid, but there are people worse. I gotta go."
Keep
And
things in perspective.
I'm sorry, girl, but this is not the end of the world. Just you're gonna feel better later. And there are people that came from hours in their buses to see a doctor, and I gotta be there. I can't just make them do that trip again tomorrow. And my mom worked with, like, the a lot of the public sector of medical system in Brazil, which is, the line goes like, across the whole hospital. Everybody is in need of, some sort of help. And just like at that time, I would be like, upset about it. And how much that impacted me, how much, and it kind of changed over time. In the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm so angry. Oh, I'm so neglected. Oh, I'm so, you know, grateful. Oh, I'm so delighted. Oh, I'm so proud. Oh, I'm so, I don't know. It's just like, it kind of like shifts
Yeah,
with
and I
time.
can imagine even going through that process, as a kid, it helps to get through some of that mom guilt later on of, oh, maybe I should just do this. But if you're actually appreciating, you know, the value of the mom as a human being who did other things, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's also okay to go out there and do that, like I'm modeling being a human being who exists in the world.
Yeah. And to see, especially like my mom, not, you know, I don't know, sacrifice, let's put it that way, her want because she was a mom was very important to me. When I became a mom, I was like, okay, this is not a either or. This is a and.
And,
And
and. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so that is like definitely part of it. And my dad, he was such a special person in my life because he had this wise way of talk about the present moment. He was there, he was there. There was no like, I am not here, I'm here. And I'm always so fascinated about, like, between them, like how much I was already in training, Gestalt training. And of course, we only realized this later, that everything can be, a training. But in that world, then I met a very good teacher, Renato Vieira, which was a dance teacher, and he was absolutely so talented, and I was just enthralled. And it was just like the time where Pina Bausch was in Brazil, and Pina Bausch, was showing something that wasn't ballet. It was something expressive, something that had emotion. And so at that same time, I started moving from ballet to contemporary dance. And I worked with Renato Vieira for like 4 years. And it was a lot about what we do in Gestalt therapy, which is present moment, um, embodiment. How does it feel to be this character of the book? How do you come, and and how do you dance from that perspective? And then, yeah, that was such an incredible person. He would study, you know, I don't know, a book, and then we'll study the book, and then we'll get the characters, and we'll dance the characters. It was just like such a uh, an experiment on on embodiment and dancing from not the technique of dance, but the technique of embodiment, which is quite different coming from ballet. And at that time in my life, I was having a lot of, uh, I mean, that kept going, but I fainted a lot. I had this fainting spells in monthly basis or weekly basis, and I would faint, and it was not a beautiful faint. It was like one of those, the head goes first, and then there is like
Oh, so it wasn't graceful.
it wasn't graceful. And there was a lot of like shaking, eyes rolling, and it was like really, now we know it's a syncope, like it's
Yeah.
a trauma response. But of course, at that time, we didn't know what was going on. It's just like Giselle is being melodramatic.
You probably get that checked.
And it was in that time that I started to realize that I had to learn yoga, and learn to breathe. So I met this, um, I actually don't remember her name, but I went to a yoga class. And this is the 80s, right? So yoga class was, you know, first of all, everybody was over 60 and I was 14 or something. And the whole idea was you lay down on your back, you put your knees up, put your hands on your belly, and you breathe for 20 times without letting your mind wander. And you try that for 6 months. So for the 6 months, you're like, okay, I got this. I can't do that. I can count to 20. Like, okay, and I'll do that standing.
Okay.
Stand up there. So you see like some people, like, everybody was in a different level, but it was all about breath, mindfulness, and doing that laying down, doing that standing, doing that in this position, right? Like it was not what we know now as next move, right? Like it was just like, can I stay here? Can I stay here? Can I stay? So that was very, I don't know, the first two teachers that I think really changed me. Um, and then I came to America after that. Actually, I went to actually I don't know. There is so many people. Do you, should I go to what happens to my story?
Well, I mean, whichever way you want to take it, I'm here for the ride. So,
So yeah. So the question is what people I met that impacted me, right?
yeah, like how did you get relationally, interpersonally shaped?
Yeah. Um, so after I danced with Renato Vieira, I went to live in a place called Búzios. In that time, it wasn't so developed. It was like about 3 hours away from Rio. And I lived in a little shack outside of the area that there was light or running water, or there was absolutely no electricity. And I spent about, I want to say 4 years there. And over there, I met someone called Kaiser, and he's no longer with us, but he was apparently from Holland, and he was a cook on a boat, ended up in Brazil, and then ended up getting a bar, and he was like the bartender. And anyway, so he was he considered himself a dancer, and I consider myself a dancer. So as usual, just like dancer, dancer. we got together, and he'll be like, "Have you ever danced with a butterfly?" I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Watch." So he'll be like moving his arms with the butterfly and mirroring the butterfly. Like I remember this blue butterfly, and he danced with the butterfly, and the butterfly kept rotating around him. And I was like, "This is insane." It's like, "You try." So then I started to try. And then from there, we would go to like rocks on the edge of the sea and try to dance in the rocks, dance, over the water, dance in boats. We just became like this um, dancing, I don't know, experimentation. And he would teach me how to do bread dancing. It's like this, you have to put your whole body when you make bread. You can't just use your hands, because your soul and your spirit infused with the bread. And I remember this like yesterday, like it was such an impactful teacher in a way, where, as someone that was, fainting until then, it was just like, oh, there is another way that I can bring myself into life, right? There is almost like a something that I wasn't aware of, that was like the animals, the objects, the food. There is other ways you can connect. There is other ways you can be present. There is other ways you can embody. And that was like so huge for me, because until then I was in dance studios, and suddenly we were out in the field, we were out in the sand, we were out in the world. And that was such a incredible learning experience for me.
I think that's so often about therapy. Like we learn it in a box. Now go do it in the world. Go do it with a butterfly. Go do it while you're making bread. Like be.
Yes, so true, so true. Oh my gosh. And yeah, and I love the idea of the Gestalt model, because it allows you to be human. And I noticed when I was studying psychology, I actually studied psychology in Brazil for a while, and I talk about not finding a teacher. I couldn't find a teacher, so I actually stopped studying and went to live in this, you know, small little area away from the world, from the academic world. But I remember like I don't want to feel even more disconnected from people by thinking I know more about what people are dealing with, or like it felt arrogant to me, and it felt against my values. Talk about against your values. And I think it's partly because my mom would come home and she would talk about like how her, patients that were from very poor communities in shanty towns were teaching her about what was needed. And eventually she started to, made a group that she paid as if she was paying a group of PhD students to teach her about what the community needed. Like that was, for me, that was so much respect on, here's an MD that has to say, I know nothing, teach me, and I'm going to pay for your knowledge because I don't know anything. And so for me, when I went to psychology school in Rio, and there was this idea that I was going to learn how to almost look down at someone, and coming from someone that was not feeling that secure, I was like, that would be such a lie to me. And I couldn't even, the idea of embodying that was so yucky inside of me. And I was like, I can't do that. I just can't. And I love what you said about in being a Gestalt therapist and taking to the world into everything, because it's that is more doable because it's about connecting and not analyzing or right or tell or doing advice or I don't know like
Yeah, it's a fine line, and it's one of those paradoxes, right? That Buddhist part of Gestalt, which is teaching
yeah
humility, and like, how do you teach someone that we know nothing? I mean, you have to model not knowing
yeah yeah
and being in that curiosity. It's difficult because that arrogance that you mentioned, like,
yeah
it's so tempting. It's right there. Like, I almost know something, and I want to know a thing, but I don't. I don't know anything.
yeah
It's hard.
yeah it is so hard and I think that that is because of those experience. I always value that a lot in Gestalt, where you get to say I know nothing, and that is okay. That is
Mhm.
actually something we can strive for versus something we want to, I don't know, not have. Actually, it's something we want to have.
And it's nice when neither one of us know anything, but we can be together and be curious.
Yeah, so true.
That sounds
And
fun.
like you said, and the best part of it is, like you said, we can bring it to all people, not just with a client.
Mhm.
Like I remember this client was like asking me, like, so are you different when you are with other people? I thought it was such a funny question. I'm like, no,
No, I'm
this is
just as weird
always
with everybody. Yeah.
yes, this is it.
hmm Hmm.
This is
So
it.
I want to ask you another question and maybe take it in a slightly different direction. But I'm curious how, in different moments of your life, or maybe just right now, it's all of it, how do you understand and experience yourself in terms of your gender or as a woman?
You know, this was kind of interesting because when I was in this time of fainting in my when I was like between like 14 and I mean until very recently, but especially between 14 and becoming a mother, I was completely against gender to the point that I had my head shaved. And I had my head shaved, I think I want to say from 16 to 21, I had my head shaved. I was like, I think there was many things I hated about the genderizing of people. I didn't like the assumptions. I didn't like the sexualization, the objectification, the roles, the what you're good at, the body, how the body should look like, or what clothes you should wear. Like everything about it was very upsetting to me. And I think part of it's because I was a dancer in the dance world, and everybody was also queered and weird. And we were, and in the 80s, we were all about non gender. That was the fad at that time too,
Yeah, the
where
androgynous.
the androgynous. I
Yeah.
remember writing a paper about it, what it is to be androgynous. And the whole idea of gender was very, very irritating to me. And then I got pregnant. And, I was married with John, and not that that was something I was in favor of. We had whole discussions about marriage. I thought it was like, in Brazil specifically, because now I was in DC. So I came to DC, and then when I was dancing here, I met John. He was the drummer of a band that was playing for a show I was doing. Anyway, I decided to go to Colorado to do dance therapy. He came, and anyway, so it evolved, and he's like, we should get married, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't want to. Anyway, it was this big deal about the gender thing, about first of all marriage, then second of all I made him write that I wasn't gonna have kids on the paper. Like I was like I was like not interested in being a woman. And here I am, right? Like so anyway, so I get pregnant with I want to get pregnant suddenly. I remember I wanted to. And so I get pregnant. It was a one try thing. I get pregnant. And then my whole world starts to realize that I am not androgynous. I am not without gender. I am a woman that is pregnant for me, right? Like, because everybody's different. That was my evolution there. And that was this beautiful thing, this magical thing for me of what it felt. And I feel like the deconstruction of androgyny is still ongoing because I think at that point I had to deconstruct what I now felt was the baseline into something else. And it took a long time. Even now, like very recently, when people ask me to put the gender on the name, I had to go through another phase of like I asked my kids. I was like,
Mhm.
guys, what do you think? Should I say her, she? Knowing I was, very into being androgynous for so long, but they doesn't work for me because that's
Mhm.
still gender for me. That's both gender. It's like more genders.
I
I'm like, I
don't want
actually
any
want
of
less
them.
genders. Could I say it?
Mm.
So,
Yeah, just
so
check
that
the
was
it's complicated box. Yeah.
yeah, it's complicated. So anyway, so it actually I think is interesting where we are right now because there is not a box for rejecting genders. There is only the
Well,
box
there's the
for accepting more
non-binary.
genders,
The
right?
non-binary, what does that do? It's not binary, but is it all of them? Is there a, yeah, interesting.
I don't know. It was very interesting, but I actually started to enjoy being a woman very recently, actually. Actually, I want to say even more recent with my menopause, where it really felt great
That's the
to
good part.
realize it felt very good actually to realize. So what happened is that so I'm in perimenopause and I am feeling absolutely crazy, irritated. I could basically break all plates on the wall every day if I had plates that just
Yeah.
rediscovered or something. And then I decided to get a patch for hormonal therapy, and I have never felt so great in actually being a woman.
Hmm.
And I just realized how hormones affect so much our identity
Mhm.
because it just felt great. And I'm just really enjoying right now being a woman, being a she, you know, which I have to say is very recent. Um, so anyway, it's quite complicated, but anyway, having two kids and having five surgeries in my ovaries because I had a lot of complications in my pregnancy and in my ovaries. I had so much conflict about my body, my woman organs, the feminine organs was, I felt like they were against me.
Hmm.
And I don't have one ovary right now. And I remember doing Gestalt therapy about my big tumors, talking with them on a chair. And like, you are me, right? You're part of me. I'm you. That is crazy. And then now, and I don't know if I'm like completely drugged because I have the patch. I'm like drugged woman now. I really love. I have to explain this to you. It completely changed. This is completely new. This is a new, we're having this interview and it's new. So my gender right now, and it's long answer, right?
Mhm.
But my gender right now is is a she. It's a
Well,
she,
it's
her.
complex and it sounds like you're transitioning into that in a different way, right? It's reconfigured.
It's reconfigured and it's kind of beautiful. And I wish I didn't felt so much pressure to have answered that any other time, but right now,
Hmm.
because it created so much anxiety and inner conflict and difficulty and shame and embarrassment. Everybody knows. Everybody is answering this question. Why can't I do that? Like it was so complicated for me and difficult. I can't explain how difficult it was. And now it's easy, but it took, I
That's
don't know.
so it's so weird, but it sounds like that patch in some way is like gender affirming medical support for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think so because it almost calmed my nervous system, calmed my symptoms, and it also calmed my confusion. It was very interesting.
Hmm.
I feel like I still don't like all the other stuff, but I think because I'm older now, and this is the part I'm trying to explain, like I don't no longer feel as an older woman, people are objectifying me, are
Mhm.
sexualizing me, are asking me to do a certain role, are asking, I am done with that.
Mhm.
It's almost like I don't have to push anymore
It's
because I'm
definitely very
here.
different to be in a mature female body than it is to be in a
Yeah.
young, fertile female body.
Right? And that was very scary. That was
Mhm.
extremely scary and difficult. And I pushed back. I pushed back very harshly about the whole thing. And I'm proud of it. That was like a
Mhm.
cute teenager angst. Now
And
that I
you'll
look
you'll
back.
do it on your own time when you're ready. You will figure it out. I think everybody does, one way or another.
Yeah. So that's the answer for
Yeah.
that one.
But what about age? Like it comes in there. How are you experiencing your age or the aging process?
Yeah, I had to stop. I was teaching dance full time pretty much for the last 12 years at the George Washington University. And I had to stop. And there was many reasons, but the main one is that my body couldn't handle the repair of my body wasn't as fast.
Yeah, I've heard that the
So
knees age faster than anything else.
yeah. So
Mhm.
like for example, I'll teach Monday and I'll be dancing like the 20-year-olds. And then Tuesday, I wouldn't be walking very well. Like walking. Then Wednesday, I would be dancing. Yeah, I'm kind of dancing like I can still demonstrate. Then Thursday, I'll be like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And that's was I was basically teaching, and then Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and then I was in my office seeing clients Tuesday, Thursdays, and half of Friday. So it was like a full crazy, juggling world. And so when it was, when was it? Yeah, I was like 47 or so. I started to feel this is getting hard. And then I want to say 51, I stopped. And so it has been a couple of years. So now I dance more for me. I'm not teaching. I'm not, I still have done a performance last summer, but again, I noticed it was the bad choice for my body. It was so painful, I have to say. And it's fine if it wasn't two performance back to back. The body, it's just like I can do it, but then it needs a week to repair. So aging for dancing is it's a lot of respect of the downtime.
Mhm.
So it's like almost like the pause is part of the dance. And it's almost like you have to um, time it. And so when I see clients, I often dance in between my clients. So I see a client, and the dance is pretty much what is the movement that is in me that needs to complete. So I see a client, I'm like, okay, what is it? Is it up? Is it down? Am I twisty? Am I, what is it? Do I have space? Am I contracted? And it, for me, like that is my inner diagnosis of where am I after a session, and kind of like,
Like that, letting it work through the
yeah,
system.
letting it work through. And that is kind of now most of my dance. And then at the end of the day, excuse me, I I sometimes do a ballet bar, or I do a floor work, or I do an improv, close my eyes and dance, and kind of, and that's how I clean up the whole day. And it can be like 5 minutes to 20 minutes, not very long. And then I'm ready to go home.
Right. But I mean, that sounds so much more like a being than a
Yeah.
performing or a product.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really want to introduce you to Emmeline Clade, who's a British choreographer, Gestalt therapist in her 80s.
Nice.
And she's
Yes.
talking about all
Wow.
of these movements, and she does a whole thing on like the process of falling as a movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to do like a, dance your
Yeah.
client. I want to see how you do this at the end of this conversation. But
I know. And that's the thing, like in contemporary dance, that's what we do. We fall on the floor a lot. Like part of my warm up, I remember it was fall down again, fall down again, and I'm doing it with them. And I'm like, with a 50-year-old body. And it's just suddenly I realized I can fall a couple of times and have fun with it, but for 10 minutes,
that's a lot. Yeah.
that's a lot for this body, but
Yeah.
you don't know you're supposed to, do less. But until you realize, oh, I have to do less. Oh, less is more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I've been enjoying, and I think that's part of like back to the feminine body, of me embracing that more delicate construct that I feel now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like for most of my life I could power, like, I want to call it the butch way.
I get like slamming. Yeah, a lot of slamming.
Yeah, just like, just like a fighter, And now it's just like, oh, I can now be delicate, and that's okay. That can be enjoyable, but it's a process because I've never been delicate.
Mm-hmm.
Just like push through until, oh, she's down, she fainted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was more my way. So now
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning to be gentle, and I think that that's the best thing I can tell you about aging. Be gentle.
That sounds like sound advice. So another question for you is, how do you experience and understand power and privilege in yourself, in the world that you live in?
I think I really enjoy the Gestalt model of holding polarities together. And I really think it's important for me to know I'm privileged and I'm not privileged. I have power and I don't have power. And every time I think we polarize and say, this person is only privileged and powerful, and they are not privileged and not powerful, is a misunderstanding on the human condition. I think the human condition is more complicated than that. So when I lived in this, fisherman beach, I had two neighbors, and they we all had nothing. We were all living, very simply with like very little. They, mostly they fished and ate the fish, by sunrise. And the man on the left was the most powerful man I have ever met. He had the, I felt like he had the power of, I don't know, strong, I want to say a strong spirit. He would come to my house with so much light and happiness and energy and love and care. And there was nothing I feel that would bother this man. He had a wife, he had 3 kids, and it was raining. He would fish with a smile. You're like, Giselle, you want some fish? No, no, thank you. Oh, I was vegetarian at the time, which is funny. Oh, you know, isn't the rain beautiful? You know, powerful man. Then I had the other guy on the other side. Same, same situation. Just always so upset. Oh, this is horrible. Look at this weather. This is horrible. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get away. I need to find a way. I need to find, a different job. I need to find a different path. I need to find money. You know what? The money is the problem. And it was this man had no power. He was powerless. And we were all there on the beach. There was nothing to do. We were all doing there, we were all just basically there. And it was such a lesson, that even if I let go of all my privilege, which I did, to try to live as simply as I can without electricity, without water, without nothing, I still can find people with power and people without power. So I don't know, and privilege without and not privilege. And I think it's very dangerous, in my opinion, to polarize anything, because I think we're practically cutting a part of your own self when you can, I don't know, project that in any way. So I don't know. And maybe again, it's my parents, because they always said everyone is equal. Do not, you know, do not think that I think they were very worried I will follow a guru or something, because they were atheists. They were like, oh, kids of atheists follow gurus and they become Hare Krishnas. And then they were very nervous. I would like follow something. I don't know. They were very nervous. And I don't know. So they ingrained this idea that everyone is equal in me, poor, rich, race, religion. We're all humans. We all have the same condition of humanity, and we all come and we all die. And that's it. And so I don't like that. Um, I don't even like to think that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think I hear what you're saying about not like fixing things in the polarities, but also still recognizing, we're all here, we're all the same, and there are differences, but just understanding that those may also be shifting and they're complex. They're not stuck, they're not forever, they're not defining.
Yeah, I think that there is a difference between privilege and power versus, um, I want to say, like, unfairness, for example. Like, if I feel like I can take, I don't know, something from someone else and not give anything back, that can happen from different places. It can come from a powerful government, but it can come from a resident from a shanty town that is hungry, and it can come from um, a sibling, right? And so if it's unfair treatment of the other, but I don't even know if that is necessarily coming from only privilege, but also unprivilege. I think it comes from a desperate lack of um, health, I think, because I don't know, here we are really trying, we try so hard to be human and be here and be with each other. And if someone, feels like they have the right to treat another person unfairly, that person is not well. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the ethics and the power over in there. Yeah.
Right? But I think it's not happening just one direction.
Mhm.
I think because I come from Brazil, I will get from both directions.
Mm,
I was robbed. I started being robbed. I was 9 years old at gunpoint.
mm.
We're just like, okay, that's life.
That's just a thing that happens. Yeah.
That's the thing that happened. That powerful gun wins, right? And then the government comes and it's like, guess what? You have no more money on your bank account because we decided we're taking the money. Oh, that's also power
Yep.
and privilege, right? But
Yeah.
it's like both ways. People are like just taking stuff out. And you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll start again, you know?
It's sort of missing that connection and the seeing each other and the humanity of all of that. But yeah, that's I think the ugly kind of power.
I think that is for me, like when you ask that question, that's where I go. And I don't know if it's because that's my experience and
Well,
I
and,
am
and
that,
that's why I asked
yeah,
the question, right? Because it is so
yeah,
different to so many different people
yeah,
because of
yeah,
our completely distinct experiences in life.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean, like I can
And,
read a dictionary, I can define it, but that's why I ask what your
yeah.
experience of it
Yes,
means.
yes, yes. I'm just, I don't know, because I feel, I don't know how necessarily to answer that question, but I was thinking about how, um, I lost what I was going to say, but I was just thinking about um, in this idea of privilege and power. Oh, yes, I know what I was going to say. I think that there is something also about, um, I think that I want to say connecting, that some people we can't connect with, and then some people are not interested in connecting with us. So I have had that feeling a lot when I lived in Colorado, especially, that a lot of people I felt they don't even want to even know who I was
Mhm. And that,
because there
that
is,
us is somehow what kind of people is an us or just an other to the people who did not want to connect with you.
I think part of it is because maybe, I don't know. I think at first I thought it was because I look Brazilian, but then I realized it wasn't. It was something else. It's a lot of other things. Is I am a little weird. I am different. I'm coming from the left field. I don't fit necessarily what they expect. They might be, too full with ideas to have more space for more ideas. And I will bring more ideas. And maybe there is no space on that person for more ideas. And they're not interested in connecting. And I don't have to take that it's because of me that they are not interested, but maybe I can have the compassion to say, they're very full already with their ideas. And that is making them safe because maybe they don't feel safe enough to not know and be back to not knowing, right? So I realize that sometimes I'm like with, I'm in certain groups and I realize not everyone is open. And I don't think that's privilege and power. I think that is just um, I thought it was actually for a long time, but I realize it's not. It's just some fear that they can't have more space for more things, for more stories, for more.
Well, it might be a really Gestalt thing. Like they might be full, they might be
Yeah,
satiated, they may not be hungry.
that is exactly how I think. Exactly how I think. So I am no longer in that world of believing it's because of how I look or how I am or how it's just that they're associated, and that's okay. And I think it took maturity in my part to not need validation from others, right? To know I exist or a need for others to validate who I am
Mhm.
or tell me I belong or tell me I'm welcome or tell like
Yeah,
I
they
no
don't
longer.
have to be hungry for you.
Yes,
Hmm.
thank you. Yes, exactly. So I think so I think that there is this part that I thought for a while that was, oh, they're so privileged they don't have,
Hmm.
to deal with people like me. But now I don't think that. Oh, I think that, oh, they're not hungry. Like you said, I
They're
like
less.
that.
I'm
I
still
like
good.
that better. I
Huh,
like that better.
huh. Neat. So now that we're using all of this Gestalt language, like where did Gestalt come into your life? How did you guys hook up? How did that go?
Okay, so back to my story. I'm gonna tell you a little bit how I got there. So I'm dancing in this little fisher town, and I get someone walking through the beach from California, and and they see what I'm doing with the dance thing. And they're like, "Oh, this is so awesome! This is what we were doing in California." I'm like, "You're doing that in California?" Like, yeah, we do that all the time. I'm like, what? This crazy idea of connecting to dance exists. I'm like, yeah. It's all.
Like I thought we made this up.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I want to go check this out. So I, my mom at this point is teaching, not teaching, working for the Pan American Organization of Health, which is here in Washington D.C. So I go and I tell her, Mom, I'm coming to visit you. I need to meet some people. And so I call all my dancer people, and I'm like, I'm going to DC. Who do I talk with? And I'm like, oh, talk with this woman, Maida Withers. So I come and she's like, you gotta go back to the academia. You have to study and dance for me and stay here. So I went for a backpack with a backpack here, stayed, and she kept asking this question, but why do you dance? Why do you dance? Why do you dance? And I'm like, because it's therapy, obviously. So she's like, well, then you got to study therapy. So I I learned that in Europa University in Colorado, they had something called dance therapy. So I go to study dance therapy in Colorado. So I moved there. And as I'm studying that, John, my husband, comes with me to study music therapy. At that time, we were just dating. And he is in the transpersonal psychology. I'm in the dance therapy. And he gets all the Gestalt classes. I'm pissed because I'm not getting the Gestalt therapy classes, which seemed amazing. And I was like, I need this. I really need this. So as soon as I graduate, I go to the Gestalt of the Rockies Institute, which is the same teachers that were teaching in Europa, which is Dewey Freeman, Victoria Story, and Dwayne Molnar. The three of them are teaching, and I get in, and I'm like, immediately, I'm so excited. Like, I was like, finally, a theoretical framework. I can go 100% behind it. It felt like going home. And I did one of the best healing sessions there because my depression when I was 3 kept going until I did the Gestalt training. And suddenly I remember after a process I did actually do with Dwayne Mooner and Victoria Story, she was leading us into this very process, body oriented, where we almost went back to our ourselves when we were born, I want to say, something like very young. And I remember I was very like, oh, I'm going to faint. That's it. I'm going to faint. And Dwayne Mooner is holding my hand. Only remember this. And when I'm going home, I heard for the first time this weird voice inside of me. It was very weird to me. And the voice said, I love my life. It was the weirdest because this never has happened to me in my whole entire existence.
You hadn't heard voices before.
Oh, I did mostly about like suicidal ideations,
Right.
like really rough stuff. But
I
to
love my life.
feel that
Yeah.
I love my life. And after that, I something extremely radical changed inside of me. And that's why I eventually decided to have kids because I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I
Life
wanna,
thing isn't so bad. I can share it with other people.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But it was so amazing that the whole training was like incredible. I learned so much and I healed so much. This is what was interesting to me. I was learning to a process that was actually changing my constitution, you know, it was changing my armor. I came in with, I remember this session. And Victoria's Story is still my supervisor to this day. She's been with me for 25 years. And we always talk about this moment where it's like one of the first weeks of class and it's my turn or whatever, or we're doing some process. And I had all the pillows around me and I had the batakas in my hands and feet. And I was like, now I'm okay. And it was like, talk about armor. It was so armored. And and to have a place I could unravel why, unravel how, and mostly how. And that's the best part about Gestalt because the why was like not important.
Yeah.
And the how became illuminated and it felt, the why disappeared and the how became, oh, this is how I am. Armored, not armored. Like there was this new idea that I could work with this now, with this present now that I was in, and with a more accepting way versus, oh my gosh, this is horrible. It's like, no, 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 no. This is it. This is what is. And what is enough. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah, that's pretty radical stuff.
Right?
Hmm.
It was very radical and I absolutely love it. And then I did that advanced training with them later. And I just couldn't get enough of that group. It was very good. Um, and then I still see Victoria every other week. We discuss Gestalt and processes and
And that's awesome. I'm wondering, what is there's certain connections, right? But like, what is Gestalt community for you? Do you have that? Do you use that? Do you cultivate that? Is there a Gestalt community for you, or is it certain people?
I, 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 I'm not sure, but for example, we both know Michael Clemens, and even though I'm not in touch with him all the time, actually, I'm not in touch with him, but I'm in touch with him through almost other people. He sends people towards me. And so I know we're thinking about each other, and I send people towards him. It's just this. So I feel like he's part of my community, or like I almost want to call it ally, one of my allies, you know. I feel like I have these allies.
Mhm.
So
It's one of those, you might not see each other, but you know he's there, right? And I do
yeah, so
you're
I
connected with Dewey, and I'm connected with Dewey and Kimberly. It's like, oh,
yeah,
they're there, even though we're not all in the same room.
yeah, and I'm very connected with Victoria in particular because I still see her so I like for me like she's like my my guiding gestalt recentering to the gestalt perspective because I also have EMDR training and dance therapy training, but they all serve the gestalt center, and I think meeting with Victoria every other week keeps me recentering to the gestalt. And so then the other thing I do is like every time I have the money and the time and I can get out of here, I go to a conference, a Gestalt conference or a Gestalt um, meet a symposium, whatever. So I met Michael Clemens in a conference in Philadelphia. We looked at each other like dancer, dancer, like the same.
Body, yeah.
He's not dancer, but it felt like that, right? And it's just like he's kind of a dancer for me. So it's kind of like, okay, dancer, okay, cool. And then he's like, oh, you should come to the Esalen Institute and teach your class. And I'm like, okay. So suddenly I'm there so I meet other people there.
Mhm.
And then I went to the Gestalt conference in Ireland
Mhm.
a couple of years ago. And so, then I meet people there. And so, and it's for me, like that is for me, the communities that I feel welcome to pop in one of these gatherings. That's how I feel. So I wanted to go to the Mexico one, but I kind of ran out of tickets in terms of getting out, and it
Mhm.
always depends on the year and what's going on here in the house. But I think part of the feeling of community is that I feel very safe in showing up in a conference, in a Gestalt conference all by myself without going like, oh, I need a buddy. Oh, I need, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like that's why I feel like it's a community because it does have that feeling of, oh, you're here. And it doesn't have to be like, I don't know, where have you been? Who are you with?
Mhm.
Or what are you doing here? And why would you be here? And why you haven't been there before? Or, I don't know. There is no like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a religion,
Mm.
which I appreciate.
So you managed not to run away and find a guru and join a cult?
I guess I did.
So far, you're safe from that. Okay.
Even though I kind of talk about Gestalt almost as if it's a religion because I was like, oh, in Gestalt, blah 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 blah. Oh, in Gestalt, blah
Yeah,
blah
the
blah. And it's like,
language starts to get a little weird after a while, but we're like, no, no, it's not like that, really.
yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So I'm curious about where you see yourself going in the future, like what
Mhm.
direction you're taking, or what sort of, projects are starting to become, definitive for you. And also, where do you think Gestalt is going these days?
Well, one thing first of all, I think I'm excited that I have I'm still interested in what I do as a Gestalt therapist. So for me, it's like very interesting. I've been doing this since 2000. So it has been like, 24, 25 years, right? And it's still new and it's still fresh and it's still challenging and it's still curious and it's still important to me. So I really hope to keep going if if not, knock on wood. Um, but because I'm no longer teaching at full time, I'm only teaching like a class in the summers at Antioch University right now on trauma and body and all that. And so I'm thinking I have a little bit of space and I'm not sure what's gonna come in there. But I love the I love groups. I love group process. I love connecting and I specifically love collaborating. So I think that there is a lot of collaborations that are popping in. Like I'm going to in April to Boston to co-create a Gestalt dance idea that I wrote in my dissertation where you dance with an ancestor and you dance from the perspective of your ancestor and yourself and you kind of like and the feel that you do together. And so we're doing this project together with two other dancers. We're going to lead that together. So it's like I love that it's a collaboration. Um, and then I think we're trying to get Michael Clemens, I think, to come over. He told me to hang out with a couple of other therapists to bring him over to DC. So I was like, oh, maybe this is gonna turn into something. I don't know. Like I like the idea of collaborating.
It's fun stuff.
So right, like I love I don't know the idea that if you ever come to DC that we can do something together, right? Like and so it's kind of like for me like that possibility is my sparkles I want to add to my future is to be more connected and connecting with other gestalt therapists and dancers and gestalt therapy dancers and just check
Mhm.
out what is possible, but I don't have any more ambition than that.
And that's nice. It's
Yeah,
you can't know what you're gonna do until you meet the people and then it starts to pop up, right?
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, it I hope I get to eventually cross paths with you face to
Okay.
face.
Come on down to Mexico. We can see what we can do.
Right, that would be so fun. So that's the idea, just
Mhm.
to be with people that feels good to be with.
And I love that, and I love that feeling. That's also very much how I operate, and not pushing towards regulation and academia and like building a bigger, harder box for it.
Yeah,
I'm very much going in that other direction of like, no, let's go out here and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I like just the idea of collaborating. I don't think Gestalt needs to be anything but what is. But that's just but I don't judge any other person that wants to take on the other stuff, which I think is a probably do. Oh, hold on. I think my thing just died.
I can still hear you.
That's
Yeah,
change ears. That's
there we
why
go.
I
One
did
at a
the
time.
trick of the one ear is charging, the other ear is on the
Yeah.
yeah. But I don't know. I think if we can keep the foundations, the fundamentals of Gestalt therapy, I I think Gestalt therapy can only get more respect as we move forward. That's my feeling.
Mm. I like that. I like that. I like that. This has felt nice to be in conversation with you. I'm curious, do you have any final thoughts or anything else that you want to put in of yourself here?
No, but I I feel like there is so many um, I guess what I was thinking since we started talking about that is there is so many little nuggets of knowledge in Gestalt that I thought maybe we were gonna dive in that we didn't dive in, so maybe another time. But like for example, I love the cycle of experience in movement and how come, you know, that was created so long ago, like in the 1940s. And I feel like only now we start hear about the body and other sectors of therapy. And it's just so interesting, like how we have so much to share in terms of like, even like the things we talk about, like polarities. Like there is so many things that, so many nuggets that I almost feel like as I'm talking with you, I start getting excited about this idea of, I don't know, how these little nuggets we talked about,
Mhm.
um, I don't know how to transform them into something more accessible to others to be able to play with that too, because it's so fun.
I love that because it's the little pieces that people get excited about, and like it's that excitement is such a fundamental Gestalt thing. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
into? What gets you excited about Gestalt? That's a whole
Yes.
other set of conversations. That's about the Gestalt. But for me, that comes
Yes.
out after you meet the person.
Yes. Yes.
If I
Okay.
put
So
the theory
exactly.
first, if I put the theory first,
Yes.
it's like, let's talk about Gestalt theory. I think that would be a horrible YouTube channel. I don't want to do that.
That's so
But,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. So because I think you inspired me to start thinking about that. So and thank you for you know having a lovely conversation with me.
Yeah, no, thank you for showing up and bringing all of this with you, in you, through you. I want to like turn off my camera and see what little dance you do to settle this, but I know that's very private. So,
I know I'm
thank
like
you.
in the wall.
Yeah. All right. Well, if it's okay with you, we can leave this one here. And
Sounds
I
good.
do look forward to being in touch, and I would love to spend some time with you someday. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.